Welcome back to another conversation on Measured Discretion with me, Alexis Ambitious. Today, I want to talk about a word that has become almost unavoidable online: narcissist. Parents are narcissists, exes are narcissists, bosses, friends, co-workers, narcissists. And whenever a term spreads this fast and this broadly, it's usually a sign that something deeper is happening underneath the surface. Now, let me be clear from the beginning. Narcissistic personality disorder is real. I'm not dismissing that. What I am questioning, though, is how casually we use the word. Because when everything becomes narcissism, nothing actually gets examined. We've turned narcissist into a cultural shortcut, a stand-in for emotional maturity, for lack of self-control, for poor emotional regulation, for selfish and harmful behavior. And instead of asking why someone behaves the way they do, we diagnose them and disengage. That feels empowering, but it's also very convenient. Social media plays a major role in this. Platforms reward clarity, certainty, and clean villains. Content that says run, cut them off, or protect your peace performs well because it gives people an immediate sense of control. What doesn't perform as well is nuance, context, prevention, healing. Very few conversations ask, how were these traits formed? What environments produced them? How do people recognize these patterns within themselves? And how do we prevent this from passing to the next generation? Even people who openly identify as narcissists online often focus on warning others, not explaining how they became that way. That absence matters. Even in my own life, there's people that I once labeled as narcissists, and they shared one thing in common: neglect. My dad would easily fit the definition people use online. But he was orphaned at 8 years old. He grew up without parents, without stability, without emotional nurturing, without anyone teaching him how to regulate emotions or build healthy relationships. That didn't excuse his harmful behavior, but it explained it. And understanding that changed how I dealt with him. I didn't erase him from my life. I didn't engage in endless conflict. I set boundaries and he respected them. You know why? Because he didn't have no other choice. The same pattern showed up in my relationship with the father of my twins. He grew up with material things, but emotional chaos, domestic conflict, no emotional safety, no consistent guidance, no emotional regulation model. That kind of environment does not produce emotionally grounded adults. It produces people who struggle with empathy, accountability, and restraint. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable because we like to believe narcissism is rare, exceptional, something that only applies to bad people. But when you look closely, many of the traits we now label as narcissistic are adaptive responses to unstable environments. Another difficult truth is this: neglecting children and pedestalizing children can lead to very similar outcomes. Neglect teaches children they're unseen. Pedestalizing teaches they're untouchable. Both remove accountability. Both interfere with emotional development. Both prevent healthy regulation. And today's society is doing both more than ever before. Technology amplifies it. Attention is rewarded, validation becomes currency, reaction is valued more than reflection. We're training people to seek affirmation without discipline, visibility without responsibility, expression without regulation. And then we act surprised when self-centered behavior increases. Instead of treating the root, we label the symptom. Because for me, boundaries have been far more effective than labels. I didn't stay in relationships that harmed me, but I also didn't pretend the people involved were monsters. I learned how to manage access, how to protect myself, and how to create stability for my children. Measured discretion is not about cutting everybody off. It's about choosing access intentionally. Who gets access at what level under what conditions? Because the truth is, no amount of labeling will ever eliminate difficult personalities from society. It's that simple. Avoidance is not a long-term strategy. Discernment is. So the real question isn't whether narcissism is rising. The real question is whether we're living in a society that diagnoses behavior without treating its causes. Are we living in a society that identifies problems faster than it builds solutions? That labels people before it examines systems? That's not just a psychology issue. That's a cultural one. And culture doesn't heal through exclusion alone. It heals through awareness, accountability, and regulation. Measured discretion asks us to do something harder than labeling. It asks us to think. If this video resonated with you, be sure to hit subscribe and stick around for our next conversation.